So it's your duty to your kids to tell them about this, to let them know what their heritage is. And so I thought about that for a while and figured, well, that's a lot of writing, but on the other hand, it's an outlet for the energies that I have that I used to use on the stage, and now I'm too old to be on the stage anymore because I'd forget my lines. So I thought, yes, I would probably enjoy doing that. So I made a plan. I would write a trilogy. And the first book would tell the story of my wife's family's exodus from Hungary. The Russians chasing them out. Why they had such difficulty is that her father was a colonel in the Hungarian army, and he was a hero, and the Russians were after his blood. And that was a very, very good story to tell, because the children were not aware of what a hero their grandfather was. And then from my point of view, they would be able to learn all about my service in World War II and in the Royal Air Force, and begin to be able to structure a real background for their family, and have information which eventually, when we both gone, they would not otherwise be able to get. And so I thought, okay, I better get started. And so I asked my brother-in-law, well, how am I going to start this? What do you think I should do? Where can I get some information? And he said, well, all you have to do is to go and see Lotzi in Florida. Lotzi and his wife Lotzi was the adjutant for Colonel Ladany in Hungary, and he would be glad to tell us all the stories necessary. And so that I got on a plane. I took a tape recorder and a camera, and I went down to see Lotzi in Florida. And he gave me not only an excellent background of what Colonel Ladany had done, but he also whetted my appetite. I thought, this man is a true hero. I've got to learn more about him. And so I went back home and thought about this. How am I going to do this? Who am I going to talk to? And then I got a brainstorm. I put an ad in the paper in the town where Colonel Ladany's regiment had been stationed through the war, based through the war. And that ad said, please, anyone who knew Colonel Ladany or served with him in World War II, please get in touch with me. And much to my amazement, I got 13 replies. So I got myself a couple of tape recorders, cameras, and all the bits and pieces, and off I went to Hungary. And I did a whole variety of interviews, and I was only just in time because these people were getting pretty old and beginning to die off, and so I was just in time to be able to get lengthy interviews and priceless photographs from 13 people, and from that created a 300-page album with all the information in the world that you can imagine. I brought that back with me. I had copies made both in Hungarian language and in English. And as a Christmas present that year, I gave each member of Narcissa's family a copy. And that, of course, was very well received. But what it did, of course, it also told me that I could make a book out of this. And that really became, that story that was in that album, became the essence of half of my first book. I called it 13 Club because it happened to be that Narcissa's family, for them it was a lucky number. Their parents met on Friday the 13th, so they always celebrated. And 13 was always my lucky number, so that was at least one thing we had in common. Anyway, I wrote the 13 Club with all that background material, and then at the in the second half of the book, I described the manufacturing company that Narcissa, my wife, and I built together. When her family, she and her family, got to the United States, she starved her way through college. They didn't have money to pay for it, so she literally starved her way through college and lived on potatoes and oversweetened coffee and all the possible dates she could get, because when she went out with one of the members on a date, one of her school buddies, she would eat as much as she could eat. And then when her host would excuse himself to go to the bathroom, she would then scrape the remains off her plate into her purse and take that home for another meal. So that's how that first book got written. And by the time, of course, that was done, I thought, well, now I should write about what I was up to in England in that period, so that my children can learn something from that. And I wrote the story of my service in World War II in North Africa, and combined it with the story of my first love, who I lost because I was not a pleasant young man. I treated her badly. I was selfish. I told her the most terrible lie you can imagine, and it was not about being unfaithful, different entirely. But anyway, what I discovered is that in all the books that had been written about that amazing campaign at El Alamein and the victory there, that was the third episode, the third battle of El Alamein. It was, all the books were army books. All the available books were army books. No one had thought to write about the vital air support that made that victory possible. Nobody. And so I thought, gee, and I was there, involved in all that stuff. I can write history, original history. And that's how it turned out. It turns out that in that book, which is called Love and Sand, all of the military mayhem that weaves itself through the book has never seen the light of day before. And that was my claim to fame, and which helped me to easily sell my first print run of 2,000 copies. And that is also the reason that it's now being rewritten as a movie version. The third one, that is only in the synopsis stage, will be called Short Pants, for a very special reason, which I won't attempt to describe here, and which opens in World War I with my father losing both his legs in the trenches, and that was before I was even born.
Wow.